Hello, everyone. As I've been highlighting accomplishments of Black people in this February month 2024, and I wanted to bring to you a family owned largest Black bank in the United States. And they're hoping to share the dream. This bank is out of New Orleans, NOLA, as they call it, a city rich in history and culture. If you've had an opportunity to visit New Orleans for the Mardi Gras and things like that, festivals, and even a taste of their food. But however, we're talking about this Black-owned bank, which is the largest in the United States, and it's a family behind it. And it's a father-son duo, and they're working to make the future wealthier for all. Now, Alden McDonald Jr. says he didn't come from money, but was rich in other ways. Now, he says, I developed a lot of skills, working skills, and personal skills back then because we had to hustle. And most Black families had to hustle to get ahead back then. And he said we had to hustle to make a living. And so as a waiter, he says, working in an event in the 1960s, he was approached about the need for Black bankers. I've always had more than one job, and the job that I had at the time, I got off at 3 o'clock. So I said, well, I'll go work part-time, he recalled. McDonald Jr. says he worked hard getting to know a business he admittedly knew nothing about and eventually became vice president. Back in '66, it was still pretty much a segregated community. But you know, when things have to get done, color wouldn't matter, right? So if I was willing to do the work, if I was willing to stay at 1 to 2 in the morning, that's what they enjoyed. That's what they liked, he said. In 1972, a new bank led by Xavier University of Louisiana President Norman C. Francis would ask McDonald Jr. to join their ranks, and the rest is history. He went on to become the president and CEO of Liberty Bank and Trust. Today, it's one of the largest Black-owned banks in the nation with more than $1 billion in assets and branches in 11 states. McDonald Jr. says that success is built on seeing people differently. They used to tell me that the definition of a banker is a person who gives you an umbrella when the sun is shining and the first one to take it away when it starts to rain. So I didn't want to be that banker, right? He said with a laugh. Now let me stop right there for a moment because I talked about God's umbrellas have no holes. God's got you covered. And they appear to have that type of mentality, is to be covered at all times, not just when times are tough or good, but at all times. And when you look at what he said, when you think about that, the sun is shining, they give you an umbrella. And then they're the first ones to take that umbrella away. God doesn't take away our umbrellas. He's always got us covered. If you stay in his will, God always got us covered. And so they have a good concept here. Now he says during the Hurricane Katrina, it would put that mantra to test. They lost 90% of their customer base, 90% of their employee base. And that's a lot because they were only left with 10% pretty much of customers and 10% pretty much of employees, right? And it says we lost all our branches. McDonald Jr. said we had to literally start all over again. Now, while some were forced to close, leaving residents without access to funds or loans, McDonald Jr. and Liberty Bank and Trust stayed, with McDonald Jr. himself working the front lobbies and taking notes by hand since the computer systems were down. They had to have money to get an apartment. They had to have money to buy bedding, kitchen stuff, utensils, he recalled. Howard University professor of finance Denise Streeter says Black-owned banks have long been important in moments of adversity, formed to fill in the gaps of discrimination and mistrust. They had to just out of necessity, because then also post-Civil War, we had redlining, and that's true. If you all are young enough or old enough to remember redlining, probably old enough, and they're still doing it in certain places, you still will see redlining going on. If you are a home buyer or you're out there looking in the market or in real estate, redlining still happens. Now, she goes on to say we had housing discrimination. That still happens. We had restricted deed covenants and so forth. She said a lot of stuff still goes on. A lot of stuff still goes on. Now, she says many Black-owned banks are still important today. They started to fill the gaps even recently during the COVID pandemic, that people were not getting the business loans from the larger banks and then had to go to the Black-owned banks to get PPP loans, for example, to pay their staff, Streeter said. According to the Brookings Institution, wealth is increasing for Americans, but that didn't change the wealth gap between Black and white Americans, a gap that's often closed through entrepreneurship and home ownership. Generational wealth is being able to have some transfer of legacy of income producing properties. Even if it's a home, it can be income producing because it's going to have equity at some point and be able to be sold or collateralized so that others can benefit, Streeter explained. A new report from the National Association of Realtors shows a modest uptick in the rates of Black home ownership in 2022, but the rates are still trailing behind other minority groups like Asians and Hispanics, who saw much larger increases. Now, the report also pointed out higher rates of mortgage denials among Black people, who were also less likely to get a down payment from family members. Some of the most wealthiest people in the world have real estate behind them because you know you can't make more of it, explained Todd McDonald. In 2022, McDonald Jr. passed the baton to his son Todd, who says the family model of people first and economic freedom will still stands, focusing now on homeowners. The community restoration programs lend to people acquiring and fixing up homes in low-income communities, provided they live in home and take a home buyer's education course. Capital is key. Unfortunately, that keeps a lot of businesses, especially business of color, out of opportunity, said Todd McDonald. He says they also help business looking to grow in the community. As a community banker, you have to learn how to separate your feelings from the actual business itself and just make the focus on helping people, he explained. All the while, he's learning from the man who laid the foundation. I know my dad's thinking not as Alden, but as, hey, this is a blessing. I'm just part of the blessing. So how do we, keep navigating this? He continued. It's all part of building wealth in all the ways that matter. Whether the wealth is in the form of money, whether the wealth is in the form of education, whether the wealth in the form of just loving people and helping people do things, that's generational wealth to me, said McDonald Jr. So we just want to say thank you to Liberty Trust Bank for helping people, or it's Liberty Bank and Trust Company, for helping people, for being a beacon of hope and light to people in the community, especially Black people, people of color. Thank you for continuing to stay strong in the midst of adversity. The Hurricane Katrina and then the pandemic. Thank you so much for all that you do. We give you a salute and we thank you so much. And so if you're down in Louisiana, or you're in one of the states where Liberty Bank and Trust is available for you, check their bank out. If you're not already a customer, that you have an account there, check them out. See what they can do to help you if you are in need. And let us support the Black banks, because again, we don't have a lot of them, but we just thank, the Black banks that are available to do the right thing on behalf of the people and to help them in time of need and adversity and give people an opportunity. And the ones that they are given an opportunity, do the right thing, pay your bills, communicate if you get in trouble and they've given you a loan, communicate with them. you know, so that you can continue to be empowered. They can continue to stay in business and be empowered and continue to help others. And I, again, highlighting African American people that are doing something and making an impact in their community or even just overall in society. So with that being said, God bless you all on today. God bless. Bye.